Welcome to the GreenBox Shift, where Matt and Kim Trent share career insights to help you turn potential into achievement. Join us weekly as we explore powerful concepts, offer actionable advice, and guide you from limitations to success.
In this episode, we're going to talk about imposter syndrome. And in case you don't know what the definition of imposter syndrome is, here it is. So the definition of imposter syndrome is the persistent self-doubt and fear of being exposed as a fraud despite clear evidence of success and competence. So we're going to discuss that in terms of, how we've run across people who've experienced this and helped them get past that, and just some techniques people can use to not have that doubt about themselves and realize that they really are an accomplished person.
Well, if you're somebody out there struggling with this extreme feelings of self-doubt, and you just kind of feel like it's like somebody's going to figure out that I'm really not that good.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
It's very, I think everybody has some of that.
Sure. Like you feel like sometimes you're just faking it and that people are going to figure out you're not that good.
Right. So I think the thing that kind of struck me when I started working with people and coaching them on things is how prevalent this imposter syndrome is, and how for some people it's really like debilitating. It's not something that's like, oh, okay, well, you just need to build up your confidence. Oh, I'll be fine, kind of a thing.
Or it's not like an occasional thing.
No,
it's
it's persistent. It's like every day there's imposter syndrome, and especially when people start new roles.
Yeah.
And they aren't familiar with the people around them, a lot of this stuff creeps in then. So there's a couple of places where you see it, right? And so kind of, talk about some of the triggers. Being in a new role is a trigger. People that are in interviewing, it's like a massive trigger for them because they sit in these conversations and they think, wow, this person is believing that I'm qualified to do this. And I'm starting to wonder, am I really that qualified, or am I just kind of, tricking this person or something, right? And so then this is going on during interviews. And I don't know if anybody out there has ever felt like this, but when it's happening to people, the way it gets described is it's like, hey, I am sitting there in fear that they're going to find out I'm a fraud. And so, I guess the natural question becomes, well, how do you address this? So there's a lot of people that have, talk about this imposter syndrome, but again, we'll kind of go back to how we work with people and how we help people with a lot of these different things. And again, if you watch the first episode back when that aired, you'll know that we introduced kind of some of these key concepts, and we talked about 3 core things, and we've been doing that ever since, right? And because that's part of what our methods are and how we work with people every day. So if you're watching this podcast, you haven't worked with us individually yet, you're hearing a lot of the same types of things, because what we want to do with the podcast is bring those concepts in so that people would be more familiar with them, because obviously we're using them every day, we're working with people. But for those people who aren't working with us yet, we thought this is still good for people to know. So here, we're going to go right back to this again. We're going to go right back to personal intellectual capital pick.
Right.
So what we found, I would say, let's see if you agree, the number one way that people are able to overcome their imposter syndrome is to really get a good handle on their pick.
Oh, yeah, that is the number one thing, because when you go through and take that inventory of everything that you know and all the knowledge that you have, all these experiences that you've had, you come to the realization that I am that good, right?
Yeah.
I'm not faking it. I really do know these things, or maybe it's I know more than I thought I knew.
Well, I think all of that's true. I think everybody that goes through that exercise of at least understanding what pick is and then spending even a little bit of time thinking about it, it helps. And I think that's what people are doing while they're, if it's bothering them while they're in a conversation with somebody, it's like, I'm really suffering from this imposter syndrome. I think that's what they're inherently doing, is they're thinking, okay, let's think for a second. No, I am qualified to have this conversation. The statement I made, I'm not misleading anybody. It's true. It's based on my experience or what I know. And so people are already doing this. I think the difference is that because we have a very structured way of introducing this concept of pick and then really exhaustively discovering everything that somebody knows.
Right.
We're teaching them how to discover everything they know. I don't know if you could ever discover everything you know, but you're going to get most of it, right, with our methods. And so once you know that, now you're in a situation where the more you know about yourself, the less likely you are to suffer from this imposter syndrome.
Right, right.
If you listen to our podcast and you start to write down a few things about your pick, skills, knowledge, and experiences, that's going to help you. But I would say, unless you're building an exhaustive list, a very comprehensive list of all this, you're not really probably going to find as holistic of a solution there. I mean, it's going to help you, but it's not going to help you to the degree if you just can sit and spend the time and really write all these things down. And again, that's part of what our methods are. We try to teach people in a very quick way to be able to sit down and you know, we work with people where people are like, I don't have the first clue about how to sit here and document all this. Can we just work together and you help me build this list? And honestly, you know, we've done this before, and we have a service around this where we sit with people and we spend, you know, a couple hours with them having conversations and just getting them conversationally to talk about all these different things. Now we're asking a lot of prompting questions and things like that to solicit what all that pick is, but that's how we're documenting it. Absent of doing something like that with us or using one of our self-guided courses where we're going to teach a method for writing all this stuff down, if you're just not in a position or have an interest in, you know, getting that into this, but you still think it's a good idea to, you know, have an idea of what you know, you know, just sit down on your own and start writing some of these things out. And your resume is a great place to kind of initial place to start with this, because there's some stuff already written down. You've already started documenting this. You maybe just didn't think about it in the way we're thinking about it. But again, this is the number one thing that we would tell people on how to solve imposter syndrome. Again, when you're staring down this list of things that you know, your pick, you're like, you can't help but to build confidence off of that.
You're right. And if you haven't done that before, it's like a really good reminder that, oh, yeah, I did all of these things and I developed this skill when I did this project and this job. And
yeah, exactly. Let me give you an example. So, you know, I interviewed in my past life, I sat in hundreds of candidate interviews, and I don't know, probably approached 1,000 interviews with candidates. And I will tell you that I would sit there and I would look at somebody's resume and I would see something on that resume that would answer a question that I would have that I hadn't thought of before. And I see the answer there. Like, I really want this person to talk about this thing they have listed here.
right.
Because I want to know more about that, because I'm understanding how that might help me. But I kept waiting for the person. I would ask a question to try to prompt them to get into that and try to, you know, oh yeah, I did spend 10 years in this industry or whatever it was, whatever was, you know, popping up for me to kind of gravitate towards. And I'd try to ask the question, you know, you wouldn't follow the question. So wouldn't share that with me. And I'm thinking, you just missed a tremendous opportunity.
Yeah.
And so as the interviewer, I'm sitting there going, I want you to be successful as the interviewee. Tap into these things, mention these things to me. They couldn't see the connection. And so then I would try to explain, well, hey, I noticed that you've done this before. Can you explain it, how that might help us in this situation? I'm getting that leading with my question, and the candidate's still not following.
Right.
To me, that's totally correctable.
Sure.
You can learn methods to prepare if somebody get in that situation. You're not even going to hesitate. You're going to be able to take full advantage of and answer the question.
Right. You're able to think of it more quickly because you've gone through a process to document it.
Exactly right.
Right.
So that's kind of the idea behind this. And so, again, you know, I would just tell you that if you haven't sat on the interviewer side of the table in the job, in the interviewing process, I think good interviewers want candidates to succeed and be able to tell their story. That doesn't mean they're going to hire them every time, but it means you're going to really try to understand who these people are. And, we talk about this a lot, but I think it's, good to mention it to people watching this, is that, we view interviewing as a collaboration. To us, interviewing, when you're in an interview, that's time to collaborate, because people see interviewing as a very isolated, an isolated event. They think, oh, I'm going to go interview for this job and I'm going to just make it through the interview and then I'm going to get hired. The problem and why we view it in a slightly different, well, not slightly, a majorly different way, is that, if you get that job, when you start, you're going to be in collaborative working sessions probably with that person that was interviewing you.
Right.
So we say, well, understand what that experience is like in that interview. Use that first opportunity to collaborate with each other. So again, how does this all fit back together with imposter syndrome? Well, it's hard to collaborate if you're suffering from imposter syndrome. It's hard to get past that and go, oh, geez, I can really try to take it from the no into the unexplored areas and the red box to green box. I can really share my pick if I'm living in fear of this imposter syndrome. The more you understand your pick, that's the number one, kind of solution to this problem.
Right. We've talked in the past about some strategies that people can use to get past imposter syndrome. So what we've talked about before is kind of reframing how you think about things, how you think about yourself and your job or whatever it is you're doing, where you maybe these feelings of doubt creep in, where you feel like you're lacking.
Yeah, I think it's not super complicated in our world. If you understand what you know and you're comfortable with what you understand, it's so much easier to navigate through this. When those little self-doubts start to creep in, you can quickly anchor yourself back to what you know. And if you've spent enough time thinking about this on a continual basis, again, the problem that people have with this stuff is that typically when they like, well, what do you understand what you know? Or document what you know. Okay, I'll do that on my resume and then I won't touch it again for 3 years.
Right.
Or I'll put on my LinkedIn profile and then kind of forget it. What we're talking about is that active understanding and acknowledgement of these things. And so when you do get a little bit of this self-doubt that creeps in, it's much easier to reframe your thought process, because you can go back to center and go, okay, I'll give you an example. I'm working in an environment and I'm going to be assigned to go work on a large project.
Right.
Large is subjective. It can mean something different things to people, but let's just say it's significant. It's important. It's complicated, whatever it might be. It's not a run of the mill thing. So it's something that I'm going to need some skills, knowledge, experiences to be successful with it. If I'm assigned to something and I start getting a little bit concerned, like, geez, this is maybe a little bit too big for me, or wow, this is a little bit more complicated than what I'm used to doing every day. Think back to what you've already done. Have you done something like it before? Because if you've done something like it, even if it wasn't the same size or magnitude or significance, but it was something that was important that you worked on,
sure,
try to find the commonality between that and whatever you've been assigned. That'll allow you to, again, get yourself anchored. You want to get anchored down on solid footing where you think, okay, I've done something like this before and I was successful with it. Or maybe I wasn't successful with it, but I understand why it wasn't successful, and I'll avoid that this time around. Once you start to do these calculations, because you've got a whole memory bank of experiences, for example,
right,
it'll calm you down. And it's kind of what we call reframing the thought around the present challenge, right? So being familiar with what you've done in the past and be able to kind of bring that to mind when you're thinking through a new situation where maybe you're suffering from imposter syndrome, we find that helps kind of bring you back and calm you down a little bit and defeat the imposter syndrome.
So maybe part of the reframing isn't focusing so much on what's different about this new project, which is that it's a lot bigger than what you might have worked on
Right.
before, but what are the common things, whether it's a large project or a smaller effort, it's going to have the same types of things that have to be done to get it to completion.
Yeah, well said. Great
Right.
job of summarizing what the point, that it is about finding the commonality and get back to things that you're familiar with. That is what defeats the imposter syndrome.
The familiarity, I've done this before, I understand how to do it. It doesn't matter that it's on a larger scale, it's still the same skill,
Exactly
and I
right.
know how to do it. So,
Exactly
which
right.
increases somebody's confidence level and
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think another big strategy here is just around having supportive relationships with people. So if you're looking to find a supportive group of people to help you when some of the self-doubt creeps in, you want to have authentic relationships where you trust what people are telling you and you believe that it's authentic.
Right.
Because if you believe that it's inauthentic or that it's somehow not real, it's not going to help you with your imposter syndrome. You're going to go, geez, that person tells me what I want to hear anyways. And all they're doing is just, placating me, and it's not really helping me here. So it's always best practice to build authentic relationships with the people around you. In that authenticity is where you actually build the supportive relationships and community of people around you.
Right.
So you kind of have to keep that in mind, that you can use your community of people for support, but make sure you're finding support in people that you have authentic relationships with.
If you're having an issue or feeling some self-doubt in your current job, or maybe in working with a boss or a coworker, taking it to a mentor or someone that you're closer to that's removed more from
Kind of a third party.
that situation, because they are looking at it through a different lens, and they're not going to be trying to satisfy any of their own self-interest either in the situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So again, another reason why you have mentors, another reason you build good support systems. There's that advantage that you can get when you can talk to somebody who's not in the, is almost a spectator of the game and not on the playing field.
Right.
It's a massive difference, right? And that's the role you and I are always in, is we're up in the coach's box looking at the field, not on the field.
And it's so interesting how when you work with people and they describe a challenging situation, and from an outsider in our position, we can so easily see what the problem is.
Right.
And maybe who the problem.
But you can,
Right.
but you can empathize.
Sure, put yourself in their
Because
shoes.
because both of us have been in that situation, and we couldn't see the forest from the trees either.
Right.
You're in the emotional, you're wrapped up emotionally in whatever you're doing, and it's hard sometimes to see that. So again, that's probably the best analogy I can use. It's like we're in the coach's box looking over the field.
Right.
It doesn't have to be us and your career, but have people up in the coach's box that you can talk to them about, who you respect and you appreciate their perspective and their opinion. They can they're extracted out enough they can see the entire field.
Right.
You may be able to see only what's in front of you. They can see the entire thing, and based on their pick, they can give you good advice and give you different kind of advice. So I guess really to summarize everything on imposter syndrome, in our world, I think the fastest way that we think you can remedy imposter syndrome if you're suffering from it is just by centering yourself back on what your pick is, your skills, knowledge, and experiences. I mean, I think that's the number one thing. Certainly our clients tell us it's the number one thing that they use to get over it. I think we've had bouts of self-doubt on different things that we've done. And I think that's what you and I have successfully done as well, is gone back to our pick and just get anchored in it.
Right.
So if you're out there and you're suffering from this, hey, look, there are ways to solve this. A lot of it is just tapping into understanding more about what you already know and building your confidence, true confidence, off of what's, already inside of you in terms of what you understand. And then I would say that, having a good support structure around you where you have these authentic relationships versus inauthentic relationships is going to help you a lot in overcoming that.
Absolutely.
So I think, again, just to put a fine point on it, however, if you're somebody who's just, even though you're listening to what we're talking about and you're really suffering with this, hey, reach out to us because, again, we've got a lot of experiences working with people in different situations, and there's a way through all of this, and we'd love to talk to you.
Okay, so we have a few questions that people have submitted prior to this podcast, so we're going to cover those now. And the first question is from somebody who's seeking a job. So they're asking, how can I stay confident during a job search when I'm dealing with imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I think a lot of this, again, first thing is just get really comfortable with your pick. We hammered that a lot in this episode, but get really comfortable with your pick and then practice your messaging around it.
Right.
So it's one thing to be familiar with it. It's another thing to be so familiar and comfortable with it that you can be conversant around it and that you can be very fluent in your conversations with other people around your pick. So those are all things you can practice. So this person's question about just, how do they build confidence in the job search? First, look at what you know.
Right.
And then do adequate preparation based on what you know. And because you're inevitably going to be able to drive a certain amount of your interview conversation back to what you know.
Right.
And that's our red box to green box concept, right? Is that you go from the known to the unexplored needs area in the green box.
Right. And interviews and also with your network, because your network could maybe lead you to that interview if they happen to know of something open in their company. So if you're able to overcome imposter syndrome and you've got your pick well documented, you can speak to those people in your network more conversantly about it. And the better you can talk to them about it, the more easily they can convey it to the hiring manager at their company. Right?
Yeah, that's a great point, Kim, because if you are if you're suffering from imposter syndrome and you're talking to people in your professional network and they get any sense that you're having extreme self-doubt, they're not going to refer you to other people in their networks. They're not going to refer you into jobs. I mean, people are kind of vouching for you when they refer you or introduce you to people. And if it looks like you're lacking confidence to an extreme degree,
hesitant.
Yeah, you got to get that resolved because people will feel like that's going to reflect poorly on them.
Sure. Right.
So again, this is all curable, right? There's a way to remedy all of this. You just have to focus on what you know and be very well versed in how to share that with other people. And then to the point where you obviously can derive some confidence off of it. But I think that's just natural when you understand these things about yourself. So,
okay, the next question came in from somebody who's in a corporate job, just kind of in the professional development area. How can I stop comparing myself to other people in my field? Because that can lead to those feelings of self-doubt, right?
I think the opportunity that we all have is that, I think it's healthy to compare yourself against others a little bit.
Yeah.
Because then you're able to kind of understand, you're able to gauge yourself against other people. And typically that's where we can find some motivation to try to improve. We see other people and they're kind of modeling certain behavior or certain accomplishments. And so we see that and go, I really want to follow down that same path.
Or that person knows how to do this and I want to learn how to do that.
That's exactly right. You can draw inspiration from people. So
right.
I think what this person's probably asking is, they're probably doing it too much. They're probably comparing themselves with other people too much. I say this, right, all the time, kind of a broken record, but think of yourself as a business entity. Think of yourself as your own business. So when you do that, there's a certain amount of understanding the competition you have to have, right?
Right.
But then you're also focused on making the best product or service that you can offer. And that's you, right? That's you being able to deliver something to somebody else. So a little bit looking at other people's okay, but you put the focus on what you ultimately want to have, what your focus is, what your goals, your objectives are, and go hammer everything out to meet those.
Right. And what are the unique things about you that set you apart from those people?
Right.
It's okay to maybe want to understand how to do some of those things they know how to do, but also understand that there's things about you that they don't have on the flip side.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's, again, underlying theme for us, differentiators. We're always seeking differentiators. So it's okay to evaluate and understand and compare yourself against others, but you should be doing it in the spirit of, hey, this is how I'm different. It doesn't always mean that you're superior or better than somebody else. It just means you have a way to articulate how you're different and how you have a different perspective maybe, and how you have a different set of experiences. It's not always in a hyper competitive way, I think, that we compare ourselves to others. Sometimes it's just to understand how we are different.
Right.
Right. So when I came out of a teaching environment, an educational environment, and went into a corporate environment, it was very different for me. And one of the things that I quickly picked up on is it's like people in this corporate environment are not as interested in sharing information and teaching each other things.
Right.
Right. Well, that was a comparison I was doing of myself against other people, but I didn't get hyper focused on it. And I thought, well, that's different about me. Well, then how do I take that and turn that into a strength or an advantage in this environment to help other people or to show them something else or whatever?
Right. Turn it into a strength, not a lack. Right.
Yeah, exactly. A deficiency kind of
deficiency.
thing.
Yeah.
All right.
That's all the questions we had today.
All right. Perfect. Again, if you've got other questions, feel free to submit those to us, and we'll typically do 3 or 4 of these in an episode. So hopefully we can get your question answered on this podcast, but if not, you can always reach out to us as well.
Ready to dive deeper? Head over to greenboxu.com to check out our Foundations course, as well as our other products and services designed for lasting success. We'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media, share your thoughts, and submit questions for future episodes. Until next time, keep exploring and unlocking your potential. See you on the next episode of the GreenBox Shift.